In this analysis video, we're going to take a look at the left tilt in transition. Now there are two major body movements to transition, one being the Jackson 5 or kind of the lateral shift, and two being this left tilt or staying in your posture. So we're going to take a look at a couple different angles so that we can really visualize this transition movement of the body and specifically the left tilt and how it helps kind of load what we want to do during the release. So over here on the right, we have Rory McIlroy, and I'm going to show you a couple different camera angles where it's possible to view this, but it's a subtle movement, so typically 3D is going to be the easiest place where you can observe it. What you'll see in 3D is that the left tilt will continue to increase until just after the top of the swing, and then the flexion, or going into the flexion pattern, is going to increase even a little bit longer. So there's a combination of this left tilt and flexion that's kind of happening during transition. So you can kind of see it from the down the line view. If we take a look at Rory there, I've got two different lines. You can see that he's not only lowering, you can see that the angle or the left side of his shoulder is kind of breaking through this line more so than his middle or kind of his belly button area. So that's the indication that he's kind of creating a little bit more of this left tilt with the left side of his rib cage during that first phase of transition. Now, if we take a look at an amateur who I have as 3D graph and is not left tilting in transition, what you'll see is as he starts down, everything kind of starts working away from that line almost instantly, and the posture is actually increasing in angle. So if we were to take a look, you can see that he's moving away from those lines where Rory's upper body is basically breaking through them. Now, if I was to just look at head height, that would obviously depend on camera angle, but you could see that this golfer is dropping his head. Now, part of that is because of the lateral movement of the pelvis. Part of it is the movement that's happening at the lower body. So using the head is not a very good way to visualize or to monitor whether or not you're having this left tilt or keeping your spine angle in transition. But I'm going to show you a view where I think it's almost as easy to view it in 3D, but unfortunately it's kind of a risky view. Over on the right, we have Rory McIlroy, who this is part of the reason why I used him for the down the line, is because A, I've seen his 3D file, I know he does this very well. B, he was one of the golfers that I was able to find a very good target line view on. So here what we'll see is as he starts his downswing, you can see that increase in the left tilt of the upper part of the spine. So you can see that upper body is kind of getting closer, and he's also tilting a little bit left. Now, the reason that you want to do that is because getting that upper body to tilt slightly to the left is going to cause the way that he is pushing against the ground to be more away from the target and less straight down. Imagine a running back or a soccer player that's going to change directions very, very quickly. They're going to get their upper body close to the ground and away from their foot so that they'll have basically a bigger moment arm or a better leverage to push against the ground from. It's part of the reason why the golfers are doing this, is to change the direction that they're able to push against the ground with. So over on the left, we have a teaching pro in Maryland who's a very good ball striker that I used to work with, and he was brave enough to take one of these down or from the target line camera views, and you can see that left tilt kind of right in there of the upper body turning into flexion, and then it's not until right about here that you start to see it going into that right side bend. So again, we'll just kind of toggle back and forth a few, and you can kind of visualize what's happening with that upper body getting slightly steeper. And that's part of the reason why the arms have to shallow a bit, because if we go back over here to Rory McIlroy, if those arms were to rotate to the left, you would tend to see the shaft get very, very vertical because of what's going on with the upper body. So building off of the left tilt in transition, then what will happen is during the release, it will go into right side bend as that leg is pushing through, and that rotation and upper body bend will help create the platform for those arms to extend through the shot. This is also a great camera view for being able to see the impact alignments. So this camera is well down on the target line, and when he's making contact, you can see that his belt buckle and even his chest are kind of pointed out at this camera. That allows for his arms to extend. So while this video is hopefully to show you about this left tilt in transition, we might as well take advantage of the camera angles and look at where these golfers are typically pointed at impact and how that enables their arms to extend. Most amateur golfers, which unfortunately we don't have, I wasn't able to find a very good camera view like this because you'd be putting your camera at risk. Most amateur golfers would be facing much more at the golf ball, and so as a result, you would tend to see their arms bend on the way through in a little bit more of a chicken wing pattern. And now we have two more golfers we can take a look at. We've got Ricky Fowler on the right, Dustin Johnson on the left. Both camera views were intended to highlight the lower body, but they actually do a pretty good job of showing what we're trying to look at the rib cage. So when he's up at the top of the swing, right about here, you can see that his shoulder is all the way up at the top of the screen, and then as he starts working down, it's that early first part of transition. As he's shifting his pressure onto the left foot, he's increasing just slightly the amount of left side bend. Over here on the left, we'll be able to see an even more exaggerated version from Dustin Johnson. So you can see that as he's changing direction during that early part of transition, you can think of it, a lot of golfers feel it as more of a flexion pattern, but you can clearly see that it's actually going 90 degrees to where his chest is facing, so it's technically more of a left side bend. But it's that movement that allows that as his upper body or his lower body shifts over here and his upper body is going down, that's going to cause the direction that he's pushing with his foot to go from pushing kind of like this to more like that. It's not so much that he's able to push harder, but it changes the direction, which is one of the hallmarks of very good drivers of the golf ball especially. So if you're struggling with early extension, if you're struggling with getting your arms to shallow, perhaps you're not doing enough of this left side bend in transition. Now, if you start to implement this left side bend in transition or the increased flexion in transition, and you start to hit toe contact or you start to hit really kind of clunky steep contact, then it's a very good indication that you're not shallowing out the club. This down the target line view is also great for seeing how they're able to rotate their arms and get into that shallow arm position, and ultimately that combination allows them to get great extension on the way through, which is one of those big keys to consistency. If you're having trouble implementing this in your own game, feel free to submit a video or send us an email and we can help you figure out what's holding you back.